All right, your next portion is going to be take your bearing housing, and it's easier for me to just go ahead and stick it in the top of the motor stool and just take this same tool, the bearing setting tool, remove this piece and go ahead and just slowly tap out the bearings. So we'll go ahead and move that out of the way, grab our bearings. At this point, we're going to go ahead and lock down our mechanical seal. We're putting our 4 nuts on either side. And you want to do this exactly like you would change a tire. Go from one side to the next without applying too much pressure on either side. This will ensure that you don't have any leaking in the future. So we'll tighten that down. Come to the other side, tighten that down as well. All right, once the mechanical seal is tightened down, we can go ahead and install our bearing housing. So we'll just slide that right on. And then you can go ahead and then put your cooling line fitting back on as well into the mechanical seal and install your four nuts. Now before we put our bearings on, we want to go down to the bottom of the assembly again and raise it as much as possible so that the assembly tightens. Now you can see that the assembly's tightened. We'll go ahead and install a spacer on the shaft and make sure it's sitting against the liquid deflector. And then we're ready for our bearings. What we want to do is make sure there's nothing along that inner race that's going to come between the bearing and the shaft. We want to go ahead and put some WD-40 or some bearing grease on the inside to help with installation. And these bearings are going to be installed face to face. Your face being this portion here with this flat race, flat inner race. You'll see on this side it has the lettering. So we'll go ahead and install this with the lettering down and use our mallet to go ahead and start that. Then we'll take our SKF bearing setting tool and move the bearing down the shaft. All right, now that we're done with our last bearing installation, we're going to go ahead and put our lock washer on. And you'll see in the lock washer it has a little tab there, and that tab will fit on this keyway you see along the threads. And then we'll go ahead and install the lock nut. We'll go ahead and screw that on. And since our assembly is still raised, we shouldn't have any problem tightening this. So we'll come tighten it until it's pretty firm. And then we'll go ahead and look at the outside tabs where our closest one is, and then we'll go ahead and push that tab up in the little slots that are provided. We'll take our mallet again, and with the overhead look, so we can keep an eye on our tabs, we'll just barely tap. We'll take a flathead screwdriver, go ahead, take that tab, push it up, and then go ahead and set it in. Once we're done with that, we're going to go ahead and lower the entire assembly and remove. And with that out, we can go ahead and reinstall the plug at the bottom. Go ahead and tighten that on there. And then we'll go ahead and put back on the bearing housing cover. What we'll also do before we completely tighten it down is we'll take the SKF tool, and since we just took out the piece from the bottom, we'll give this a few taps just to make sure the assembly is all the way down. We'll also do a visual check at the mark that we did at the beginning of the assembly to make sure that we're in the same position. In this case, we are. Also, we want to check for free rotation. So we'll just come up to the top of the shaft and do a quick spin. And as you can tell, we have free rotation. It means nothing internally is binding. We're not going to draw extra horsepower, unneeded horsepower from our pump. And more than anything, it tells us that we did a good assembly.